Hello, my juniors and all you anatomy students. Being virtual week kind of changed up some of our plans. The good news is we're still going to be able to finish our nervous system notes and discussion and still give out most of the things we were going to do in class this week. Includes a couple quizzes. Of course, our lab together will have to be either canceled or moved back. And it still sets us up for next week to hopefully be able to take an exam that we've mentioned a couple times. And hopefully watch our film that we're going to end this unit on. Anyway, this first video is the second part of our notes. Slides, well, my list is like 1 through 15. Yours will be like 1 through 14, 15, whatever. The last slide we went over was meningitis, inflammation of the meninges. Then there was this little informational slide. This video is going to pick up right here. Okay, and this is some good stuff. We're getting into the different parts of the brain. The brain is divided into 4 major portions. Of course, you're going to use this to fill in your notes, right? And then your notes to take quizzes and, hopefully help you on your study guide to get prepared for your exam next week. So take time on these notes to fill in the blanks in your student notes assignment. Then also just to watch as I discuss some things. If you have any questions this week, of course, email me. The good news is I'm available all week long. I'm your teacher even if we're virtual, so if you have questions or just want to talk about some things, shoot me an email. We can get on Google Meet or go through GoGuardian if you need to show me something on your computer. I'm here for you, okay? I don't want you to feel like you're having to learn alone. So if something's confusing, something needs some clarification, just shoot me an email. jhicks@randolphboe.org. So the brain is divided in 4 major portions, and here are the 4 right there. We're going to break down all 4 of them. A lot of times people look at the brain and they think only about this large mass, signified by this white portion here. And in reality, the brain has a whole lot of more, things going on in it. But first off, let's look at that portion that everybody thinks of, the cerebrum. The cerebrum, the largest portion of the brain by far, is divided into hemispheres, right and left hemisphere. It's divided by something called, it's connected, these 2 hemispheres, by the corpus callosum. This is just a patch of brain tissue, the corpus callosum. It looks kind of different from the other hemispheres. It doesn't have the wrinkles and things like that. There's a video I posted called Brain Dissections that you can really see these different elements, especially the cerebrum, and you can also make out the corpus callosum. And also surrounding that corpus callosum, you use another a layer of dura mater. Remember, that's part of the meninges, so it fills that gap too. Now, this right and left cerebral hemispheres, common question is, you hear about things like, I'm right-brained and I think this way, I'm better at math, or I'm left-brained and I'm better at English. That's not really completely factual. Yes, there are certain areas in our brain where some things take place. Remember in one of the videos, I think it was the early techniques of brain or studying the brain, Broca's area talked about speech, like understanding speech, I think it was, and that typically takes part in the left part of place in the left part of the brain near the front, in the frontal lobe, which we'll learn about. But it's not really to say you're more right brain or left brain. It means you just like to use one side more than the other, or one area more than the other when it comes to understanding, logical things or mathematical things, or more theatrical, dramatic type things. Oftentimes we see in language arts. So anyway, but you're going to use both of them. You're not just right brain like you're right-handed, okay? The surface of the brain has these convolutions. They're ridges, or sometimes you'll hear them called wrinkles. So they're separated by all these grooves. That video, again, Brain Dissection, does a really good job of showing these. The cerebral cortex is this thin layer of gray matter. You'll hear about gray matter and white matter making up the brain. Remember, neurons have this myelin sheath running along their axons. You can look at the diagram that's been posted since last week. The gray matter is near the surface, and it's made up of unmyelinated axons, so they don't have that myelin sheath. All right, and this is right near the surface, and it does have a grayer appearance. Beneath that is the white matter, and this is neurons with myelin sheaths on them. All right, a little different from the gray matter and what they do. And how they process things. I think that's in some slides here in a minute. Of course, remember, you can pause this at any time to fill in blanks, or I'm probably going to talk enough on each slide that you can fill in as you listen. All right, there's 4 lobes of the cerebral hemispheres. and they're named for the bones. So you already know things like the parietal bone. So let's take a look at these. I skipped one. I did skip one. Sorry about that. The frontal lobe. So in case you're keeping track, we went from lobes to frontal lobe. Okay, frontal lobe, just as the name implies, front of the brain, front of the cerebrum, and this is the part that is very logical. It's got to do with reasoning and planning, also some parts of speech and movement. And this is the highly emotional part of our brain. If you've ever heard of somebody having a lobotomy, it was a procedure that medically was given to people up until probably about 40, 50 years ago, if not later than that, where they would take a needle and shove it up your nose and puncture part of the frontal lobe. Now, this did a great job of canceling out some emotional issues, basically because you destroyed the part of the frontal lobe that dealt with these emotions. Definitely not recommended, okay, and certainly not used anymore. But this part of the brain is a higher functioning type part of the brain, I guess you could think of it that way. It's where you make sense of things, you process emotions. It's where a lot of your higher thinking takes place, okay? So that's why it's problem solving, that front part of your brain. You look at the parietal lobe in the diagram shown in the white part there. This is behind the frontal lobe, right underneath the parietal bone of the cranium. This is concerned with perception of stimuli. So think about how you feel things, okay? Like physically feel things like touch, or you feel pressure. If somebody put a hand on your shoulder, you'd be able to feel that they're touching it. You'd also see how much they're pressing down. Temperature, you can tell if things are hot, and of course your pain receptors. So parietal lobe, notice they're not a lot of higher level thinking like the frontal lobe, but still very important stuff. Making sense of our environments and how we are perceiving our environments. So if you had damage to the parietal lobe, you may not be able to sense things with your sense of touch, or you may not be able to process, this is, very hot, I should move away from it. So the parietal lobe controls a lot of those things. The temporal lobes behind the temples, you might hear about the temples on the side of your head there, the temporal lobe right around there, sides, mainly auditory stimuli. So you hear things, understanding, making sense of it, recalling, I hear something, howling. Oh, it's a coyote. I've heard that before, and my grandpa told me it was a coyote. So that's what that is. And also memory. Your temporal lobe is very important in processing memories, almost like a hard drive, storing up these memories so that you can recall them. And as you can see, there's a lot of jump between your frontal lobe, your parietal lobe, and temporal lobe. Think about your parietal lobe senses something is hot. Your temporal lobe, it makes sense. I felt this before. Okay, this iron must be hot because I know it can either be hot or cold. Your frontal lobe then gets stimulated and goes, I need to move my dang hand away. And so it pulls it away. So there's a lot of play between the lobes. Your occipital lobe, back of the brain, the red portion there, many aspects of vision, which is kind of cool because it's in the back of the head and your eyes are in the front of your head. But the occipital nerve that we'll learn, or your optic nerve, that we'll learn about later on in video 3, runs right into the occipital lobe. So it processes things about vision, what you see, how much light. It also controls, do your pupils get bigger in darker situations so that you can retain more light. It also brings some of the emotions in there. Your pupils get bigger when you see something that you enjoy, somebody that you love. They tend to get bigger. That's a physical change that actually happens. Your occipital lobe plays a huge role in that. All right, moving on fairly quickly. We're at like almost 9 minutes. We got 15 minutes of video, so we'll probably use all of them. The cerebellum, oftentimes called the primordial brain or the primitive brain. This looks like a little bitty brain on the back of your head. You see in red there, just beneath the occipital lobe. It's composed mainly of white matter, and it's a very, very thin layer of gray matter on its surface. So very similar structure to the cerebrum, but the gray matter is not near as thick. This is a reflex center. Okay, this is the part of our brain that deals with our coordination over skeletal muscle movement. It helps us think about, when it says maintain posture down there, it's not just saying, oh, I need to stand up straight, my cerebellum must be activated. No, it makes sense of your surroundings. If you've ever closed your eyes and spun around in circles and then just without opening them, tried to walk around the room and kind of make sense of your bearings, gain your bearings, your cerebellum helps you make sense of where you are. Okay, and now it does play in all those different senses, so your sight, your touch, and all that stuff. The cerebellum if you've ever been seasick, your cerebellum's having a hard time making sense of things. A lot of times because of the fluid in your ears getting sloshed around. And that has a huge role in maintaining, a good posture and balance. Okay, so the cerebellum is that control center. Think about why it's the primitive brain. If you don't have any kind of higher thinking, you need to be able to make sense of your surroundings, how to be able to run and stand up, or what posture you should be in if you're attacking something or whatever. But you don't need it for higher level thinking. The diencephalon is right in the middle part of your brain. It's kind of just underneath the cerebrum, between the brainstem, as we're about to see what that is, and the cerebrum. Gray matter, this is a relay station, all right? Sensory impulses coming over from all of your 5 senses to the nervous system goes right through here. This is like a train station or a subway station, how it collects signals and then routes them to the places they're supposed to go. Diencephalon, pretty dang important. All right, this consists of the thalamus, the epithalamus, and the hypothalamus. It also contains something called the pineal gland. Now, 3 of these 4, we might talk about the epithalamus a little bit. We're really going to go over with the endocrine system. So we'll learn a lot more about these parts of the diencephalon at that time. I think what I'm actually going to do is stop this video and pick up with video 3, just so we can make sure we get all the rest of this brain structure in there, okay? So I'll see you in video 3.